Hey, so the GMTK Game Jam is really soon, and I thought I would do a quick video to maybe share some tips and recommendation on how to make your own game during a game jam. I think the best would be to also show you the submission I did last year and to see how I did it and what went right or wrong. So last year, the GMTK Game Jam theme was dual purpose, and it was based on the video about Done Well, and the game I did was called Void. So let me show you the game. It's a shooting game, and the point of the game is that you don't see the playfield, and you can shoot, and your bullets actually like show a bit more about the playfield and reveal some enemies. So you can shoot them, and when the enemies explode, boom, there is a bit of light around them, so you can see it. So you really have to manage basically like what you can see, what you cannot see. And if you shoot too much, your bullets start to be offer less visibility, so you have to handle that. So, and like I can die. So I was lucky enough because it was picked as one of the best game during this game jam. So I was really thrilled about this selection. And it was not my first game jam. I did several game jam before, and in between I did others. And so yeah, so here are some of my recommendations how to handle a game jam. I think an important point is that you can prepare before a game jam some small stuff. So something you can already do now is simply install the tools you want to use, update them if necessary, and pick maybe libraries or plugins that might be useful during the game jam for you. I personally use Love2D, which is a game engine where you program everything in Lua. There is no tool provided, there is no level editor, no collision. You have to do everything yourself, which is a kind of fun learning experience, but pick anything you can be comfortable with. Unity, Pico 8, game makers. Do your research, look before what's suitable for you and what you know about programming, and check the best. And when you have a tool, you should get familiar with it and know the basics of it. But always, when I go to a game jam, I try to learn something, so I try always to learn a new tool. So usually, I get familiar with a tool, or like a library or a technique, and during the game jam, I'm really learning on how to use it. It's always very exciting to actually like learn something new during a game jam. Another recommendation I have before the game jam is to get familiar on how to submit a game, especially on itch. It's very easy, but at the end of the game jam, when you're a bit tired and stressed, it's better if you know already how to submit a game. Also, any tools you might check to take screenshot, to make GIFs, if you can do that beforehand, it's really helpful at the end or during the game jam to document your progress. So I really recommend checking all the tools you can before the game jam. Okay, so the game jam starts, and now you have a theme. What do you do? Personally, how I approach game jam is I start with a notepad, pens, and writing down ideas. It's already next to me. I'm doodling, I'm writing numbers when I'm programming. So the notepad is always super useful to me during a game jam. And when the theme is out, my recommendation is like, don't rush. Don't rush immediately in your editor trying to make something or to code. What I recommend is just trying to have ideas, not just one, multiple ideas, and try to check what is the most promising one, and try to assess also like how much work everything will need. So try to check how many elements you will have to make. So I can show you, for example, for Void, it was very straightforward. So you have basically the player, the ship to control, the bullets, very minimal collisions, and the enemies and bullet patterns. And so I have like very little code. I have like, so config file 1, 2, 3, 4 source file, and the source files are quite small. For assets, let me show you. Like I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 assets I had to make. So I have the enemy bullet, which is a very straightforward. It's like, I cannot see, it's so small, it's like a dot. I have the player bullet here. I have, for the title screen, I have the ship, and it's everything is small pixel art, basically. The title and the background, which is the biggest asset, basically. So yeah, very little resources, very little code, very little sound effect. So the idea was simple and easy to make, and this is why I picked it, basically. And it's not because it's simple that it's bad, but it will give you enough time to polish a bit more every aspect of the game, basically. So I really recommend take a small concept, don't go too big, and assess what you will be able to make. But basically, yeah, it depends of everyone, but some people take half a day not doing anything and just thinking. Usually I take maybe like 2 hours of like brainstorming, preparing a breakfast and thinking about it. So take your time, don't start immediately, have ideas and pick the ideas that you will be able to do during the game jam. So now that you have your idea, you have to do it. And it's simple during a game jam, you just have to go to be very straightforward. Do something that does the job. So I can show you some code, like I will not comment it right now, but it's very straightforward. So for example, all my enemy pattern with like the bullet pattern is just a table with that change the enemy definition. So how many cannons they have. I have an easing function to show like their cooldown, maybe how they rotate and everything like that. It's very straightforward. I have like 6 enemies, all with different like parameters, and I didn't have to code for hours to do that. It was very easy to bring like a variety. So yeah. Another advice I have for code is solve the bugs immediately. Don't wait, oh, I will solve this problem later on, because you pile up everything at the end of the game jam and it will be a nightmare. If you can solve the bug now, solve the bug now. And another recommendation is take breaks. Breaks are great to pause and relax and maybe have some ideas, and often you can solve your issues during your break. So yeah, don't hesitate to take breaks. It's not a rush. I think Void, I did it in 10 hours total. So like I took a lot of breaks. I watched a movie, I played with my kids. Take your time and everything will be all right. Okay, so I will return maybe to the game and maybe like I will do some comment on how I did some stuff. So for example, one of the problems I had as a bullet shooter is that you want something that is very reactive and give you a lot of precision. So the ship is quite fast, but still, if I want to have like tiny movement, I can really like do very small movements with my ship. And as soon as I press longer, I'm really fast. And I have like a easing function that does that. I don't have like complex acceleration and so on. It's just an easing function that go from the origin to the target and so on. By the way, for code, easing functions are your friend. You should really use them because they add a lot of life in your game. So basically, an easing function is when you have a value and you have to move it between the start and the end, like a very simple value. And the default one is linear, so it goes straight, but you have a lot of easing function to add a lot of curves to it and make everything a bit more natural and feel good. Another function I really recommend are like tools is like screen shake. This is your friend. You should absolutely have screen shake in your game to actually add some punch. It's super useful in Game Jam because it's easy way to add some impact and feedback to the player. Okay, so yes, the movement of the ship, I actually like spend a lot of time to try to tweak it, and I think it's worked quite well because you don't really notice it. Another recommendation I have is add randomness to your game. So the enemy patterns are all random. I have like difficulty ramping up over time, but it's not just the enemies that are like distributed randomly. It's also like the bullets. The bullets have an angle and they are not already straight. And it's a small thing, but it's really had unpredictability a bit, but also it gives a more natural look. If everything is straight, it's a bit weird, and the player will notice it quite fast. So always add a bit of randomness. I have some random function also to pick random sounds, not in this game jam, but usually I have multiple sound for explosion. I have a random function that pick one of the random explosions. So it breaks down a certain pattern, basically. I really recommend that. Okay, so I don't know what else I could comment about, but oh yeah, another interesting aspect is instruction. People who will play your game after the game jam will actually often just install the game and start playing. They will not read necessarily the game page where you might describe everything. So you should describe how to play the game inside the game page, but if you launch the title, you should explain actually how to play the game. So you might notice that actually the game doesn't have any tutorial, but it's not actually true. I thought about that. And the tutorial is in front here. It's like you have a big smash spacebar. It's the only instruction in the game, and it helps you to do everything because you know exactly which key to press. And when you land in the game, you will try to press the same key. So suddenly you are shooting, and this is the main action. And after you are trying to move your ship, and you press the arrow keys, and it's pretty straightforward that the user will try to use the arrow key. And suddenly, you don't need instructions. The player already know everything, and it doesn't even know that they learn how to play the game like that. I just play on basically the knowledge of what the player might know. Use the arrow key to move, and for the key to have the main action, I just use it in the title screen to show like how to launch the game using the spacebar. So this is minimalist here, but if your game is a bit more complex, don't hesitate to add instruction. And it can be very straightforward. You just have a splash screen with some text pre-baked that you make in a bitmap editor to explain how to play your game. Okay, so you finish your game. You have to finish, I think, your game. I would recommend 1 hour before the deadline or your deadline to actually maybe like pause, make the build of the game, publish everything, maybe solving the lost bug. But I really recommend stopping 1 hour before. I think for Void, I even like started during the afternoon, so like way before, and it was really helpful because I could relax and maybe think if I forget something or not. So, for example, one of the common comments when I published the game was that there are no high score, and this is true. There is absolutely no high score in the game. And I see totally it's a fair comment to say that this feature is missing. But as I say, I had plenty of time. I could have added it. But the choice was that the game was not really balanced to have a fair high score. I could have choose like points or maybe the time. But it was a lot of stuff just to make for such a simple game. Like I needed to write a function to display text, which I didn't have. I needed to write maybe like the different digits to show the score. So it was a lot to do for something that inherently I think was broken because the game was not balanced to be a high score because it's so random. So I decided to not include it, and I think this is totally fair. What you have to showcase is the main concept of the game, the main idea, and how to exploit it. The point is not to make as many features as you want. People who can do that, it's amazing. I am always surprised when you have like online leaderboard in a game jam. But don't stress that so much. Don't try to have save point. Don't try too much. Be minimalist. Your goal is to finish a title. It's not the great title. Showcase an idea and finish it. This is your main goal. Okay, so I think that's it for tonight. This is the only tips I wanted to share. If you have tips on your own, maybe you can comment, how you say, like comments below, or like contact me on Twitter or whatever. But like, if you want to share tips, I think it's a good place to start. Thank you so much for watching everything, and good luck for the GMTK Game Jam. I wish you all the best. Bye.